Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of House Loan and Order. I am Doug Walters, realtor, over 10 years of experience in the industry. Let's hand it off to Jason.
Hey guys, Jason Evans, mortgage loan officer at Guaranteed Rate. Been in the industry since 2005. Do you want me to say anything else?
Rick, do you want to pick that up, or do you want to keep things awkward for Jason?
This is attorney Richard Carter, who fills in during the awkward moments. And I'm an attorney for over 30 years, and I'm glad to be with these two guys who are very well established in this industry. So it's always good to chat with you guys. So, Jason, I have a lot of questions for you, but Doug, you probably have a lot of questions for both of us. Fire away.
Oh, always a lot of questions. One thing I noticed is you did disclose this session how long you've been in the business, so I do appreciate that candor.
I know.
It's getting a little more comfortable now.
Yeah, I know. Last episode it was like, let's keep that quiet. This episode is out in the open.
It is what it is.
Good stuff. Well, I thought that it'd be helpful if we started with what's happening this week. At my end, with regard to how the market is shifting, it's kind of unbelievable what I'm seeing. But I'd love to hear what you guys are seeing first. Rick, are you seeing, out of curiosity, anything in P&Ss people are adding, more repair addendums, anything that's changing week over week? Maybe some grumpy attorneys out there. What's going on?
I'm always seeing that. Similar to what you two are seeing, you can tell the market is getting back more balanced. For the longest time, the sellers pretty much were dictating terms, and then last year now, it became a little bit more balanced. I'm actually seeing now it's almost going the other way, where buyers are getting very, very choosy on what they're doing. Jason, you might be seeing it too, that they seem to be shopping around a little bit more for lenders, and I think they're feeling like they're more in the driver's seat in a lot of areas. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. So I've seen 3 shifts over the last 3 years. It was definitely seller motivated and or influenced. Then it did start turning into a more of a balanced one between sellers and buyers. Now it seems like I'm seeing more on the buyers, and they're trying to take a little bit more control.
Do you mind specifying, just for people that are listening or watching, what kind of things are buyers doing to put them in the driver's seat? Like, what are they asking for? What are they doing? Just for people who aren't in the industry.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, it was very competitive, and they knew the auction effect that you might be able to talk about, Doug, but they were just trying to outbid their rival buyers, and excluding a lot of contingencies in their offers. No home inspections, no mortgage and clauses, not subject to appraisal, and then they were adding in new clauses that I hadn't seen in a long time. One of which was allowing a seller to use and occupy the property after the closing. So I was seeing a lot more of that. So now it seems like now they're taking it a little bit further, where not only are they doing a home inspection, but now they're asking for more repairs than I've seen in the past. So maybe they're asking for a closing cost credit, which I hadn't seen a year ago, or definitely not 2 years ago. So they might be asking for a closing cost credit, and so Jason can probably tell us, what they kind of approve and not approve on their end as far as closing cost credits and things like that. But that's what I'm seeing more of now. That buyers are, ramping up their requests a little bit.
Cool. Jason, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing?
As far as closing cost credits, definitely seen that get negotiated more because buyers are able to do home inspections more. So a lot of times after the home inspection, they'll be able to get some credits. And the key with the closing cost credits is they're not allowed to exceed your total costs. So if your total costs are $10,000 to get your mortgage and to close, you can't get a closing cost credit for $20,000. It can only cover your actual costs. But what we are seeing buyers do more of is use those credits to not only cover the typical costs, but maybe also use it to buy down their interest rate and pay extra costs to get a lower rate, which is now being paid for by the seller. So that's a strategy that a lot of buyers have been trying to use with rates being so high right now. And it's a way to help them save money and directly impact their monthly payments. But definitely seeing more home inspections, seen some home sale contingencies again. We had one where there was 2 home sale contingencies involved. So definitely the buyers have more negotiating power right now. And, in general, I think that a lot of that's because the rates are so high, right? There's just less buyers interested right now, but we may be getting some good news on that too. Just a couple hours ago, the Fed had their meeting and they decided not to raise rates at this meeting. And they mentioned some tighter financial conditions that they're starting to witness, which is what they've been waiting for. And, they're not talking about cutting rates yet, but they're not increasing them. There's a lot of predictions saying they probably won't increase them next month either. So maybe we've seen the worst of it. Just this week alone, and including after this meeting today, rates have improved by about 0.25%. So coming off the 23-year highs. And, I've noticed that when rates change, the buyers don't react to it immediately. Sometimes it takes a while for buyers to get the information and to get back in the market or get out of the market. So as rates come down, I think more buyers will start getting involved again, and things could shift back quickly too, as far as the balance goes. So we'll see.
It is kind of crazy how quickly market shifts happen. Like even week over week, when we did this last week, it's kind of incredible how much the market has shifted towards buyers. And I'm very much seeing the same thing on my end. It's interesting. So I agree with you that, 100% rates, because of where they're at, there are fewer homes that are going contingent under agreement. Maybe there's fewer buyers in the market. The other thing that I'm seeing, though, is more and more supply is coming on, especially new construction, which is really shocking to me. The builders that got projects in the spring or got projects, last year, typically they try to get projects done in 9 months. And it just seems like the market is being flooded. Like I was just doing an analysis for Andover, for example, and the market is literally flooded with new construction. And, it's hurting everybody. So inevitably, these, builders have to sell. They have holding costs, right? They have loans. They have a variety of different items that force them to, get rid of that property. So I actually do believe that there are, and the key is at certain markets, you really have to know your market and your micro markets and your neighborhoods, right? So if you're working with a good buyer's agent, they're doing their due diligence, they're going to be able to identify properties where you're able to negotiate a whole host of items. So I actually, seasonally, spring in terms of like, how good it is to buy. Spring's usually pretty good in the sense you're going to pay more, but there's more options, right? And then that decreases summer, prices are a little bit better, but there's less inventory, all the way down fall to the winter. This fall is coming right now to be like one of the best times I've seen to buy in a long time, just because of the fact that there is a lot of high quality, not poor quality, like high quality inventory sitting. There's a lot of price reductions happening. Middlesex County, I believe, had 105 price reductions just in the last week, which is insane. It's the most amount of price reductions we've ever seen recently this year. So just the fact that sellers, there are a lot of motivated sellers that do want to get their property off the market. We got to remind ourselves that sellers have options. Sometimes buyers forget that. So in the event that someone doesn't sell the property in the fall, they don't have to. They can just relist in the spring and get a better price. We're not seeing sellers that want to go that route. They're willing to reduce their property. They're not taking it off the market, which is a really positive indicator. So I'm trying to educate buyers that, the quality of inventory is high right now, which is surprising for this time of the year. Typically we see it best in the spring. Yes, rates are high, but at the same time, there are so many price reductions that are happening. It actually gives you the ability to negotiate a whole host of items. I'm really glad that you brought that up, Jason, because a lot of buyers and even buyer agents don't realize all the things they can negotiate. Like you can negotiate closing costs, you can negotiate rate buy down, you can negotiate a lower price, you can negotiate repairs. Like, is there anything that can't be negotiated in real estate? Rick, you can confirm this. So it's like I think it's now time for like creative negotiating, which I love to see. Like I feel like as a buyer's agent, it's like, yes, like my value is there, but now it's like it's increased tenfold because now I'm entering back into the power position, where we can look at the data and be like, geez, this property's sitting for 3 weeks. We know statistically that if a property's been on 3 weeks, they're going to need to do a price reduction in order to get as much interest going. So I can literally pick and say, like, we can ask for a price reduction on that property. Here's what we can negotiate on this one. 3 new construction came on in this price range. Like these guys are all getting squeezed. So I think I hate to say that like now is the time to buy because I think that's such a canned realtor expression, but there is a huge opportunity to get a great deal right now for buying a home. Some people may not want to transition right now, but it is a really good time to buy a home. Especially if you evaluate, as we talked about last podcast, Jason, the opportunity cost there. I think for a lot of people, it's going to make more sense to buy now, do the 3-2-1 buy down, right? And then own the property now, they start getting that appreciation going and get the property at a good price.
No, definitely. Great time to use those strategies and help reduce your costs until the rates do come down and you can refinance. So I think a lot of buyers that are in the market right now think bigger picture like that, and they realize they can always update their rate, but they can't update the price they paid for the home. So you can get a good price now. There's good value there, and ultimately you can always update your rate when they come down.
Yeah,
This is
sorry,
also
go ahead,
the
Rick.
time to buy as we go into the holiday season, because a lot of buyers get out of the market at this point. There's not quite as much of a struggle. Do you see it a little bit more as we're getting into Thanksgiving and Christmas and beginning of the year, or not?
Sorry, what was that question for?
Oh, Doug, I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad.
I'm just talking about purchasing during the holidays. Advantages and disadvantages of that for buyers and sellers. Is there little bit less competition because buyers are preoccupied with their usual spending and travels and holidays, and so another reason for it might be a good time to buy now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, in terms of inventory levels, it's almost always the lowest in the winter. I tell most buyers, like, fall's a good time to get a deal. Winter's a great time to get a deal. And because we have high quality inventory that's sitting, it's like an incredible time to get a deal, which is insane because typically you don't have as many options. It's like now you actually have a ton of options. And there are going to be buyers where the timeline isn't going to be ideal, but you ask yourself, are you willing to stomach the discomfort of a move during a time where it's cold out, to save a ton of money? I think it's really smart. If you look at the angle from investors, right? Typically investors pay attention to the purchase price because that's how they can maximize their cap rate, right? If they're able to negotiate a really great purchase price, they're going to have a really high cap rate. So I really think the essential element for buyers right now is to make sure you're working with a really good buyer's agent and really focus on that price. Like if you're buying new construction, the builder does want to get the highest possible price so they can sell other builds, right? And also, in general, realtors want to do that too because it increases the price of other homes that you have a high comparable. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be negotiating that amount. So I think the key is you need to be working with a savvy buyer's agent who knows the market, and you need to have, as we always talk about, like a good team. It kind of blows my mind that there's less conversation about working with a good lender and working with a good attorney. It seems like the general public is of the idea of like, if I find a good realtor, everything will go well. And that clearly does work out for many people, but especially in a market like this where that's ripe for opportunity, you need to have a good team. Good home inspector too, like especially one that works fast, like that can literally be a game changer. Like, I have home inspectors that I could call or text them right now and schedule an appointment for tomorrow at 8 a.m. You need to have multiple people like that are willing to move fast. You could save your clients like tens to, at certain price points, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like it's not a small amount,
How would you just find a good buyer's agent? What would you do differently? There's a loaded question for you, Doug, but I only ask this because I know you probably have the answers to this, but you say you got to get a good buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
So what would a good buyer's agent do?
So it's a really good question. I'm going to answer that in terms of the highest value things that I think a buyer agent offers, AKA the things that will impact the net sale price the most, right? Because there are a million different things that a buyer agent does, but not all the activities offer the same amount of value, right? I think the most valuable thing that an agent does, as a buyer or seller, is their ability to have difficult conversations. If plain and simple, if as an agent, you have to be able to have difficult conversations, right? With your clients, with, the opposing parties, with anyone that's involved. It's essentially the ability to negotiate. If you can't have difficult conversations and have the empathy and the ability to navigate those conversations, inevitably your clients are not going to end up, as well off as they should be. And it's crazy to me how many having competed against buyer agents and listing agents, it's crazy to me how most people avoid difficult conversations when like that is the job responsibility in my mind. Like, are you willing to have difficult conversations every day for the benefit of your clients? If you're not, then you're essentially just leaving money on the table for them that they'll probably never know about, but you're really not doing the right service for your client. The easiest example I can provide is, Jason and I were working on one transaction. We asked for, a seller concession of like $8,000. And the listing agent was like, what the heck? Like, this is absurd. And I was like, it's a request. Just ask the seller. What did the seller say? Sure. It's $8,000 that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and most agents wouldn't have asked for. And, we just asked for it. We justified it with a variety of different reasons, but like sometimes just asking is all you have to do. It's kind of unbelievable how many realtors just don't ask. So I would say that's probably the first one, your negotiating ability and the ability to have difficult conversations. I think the number two is due diligence. And I won't go too in depth with this stuff, but like it is unbelievable how much information we have access to on properties. I have a 2-page, link list of all of the different sites that I can use to do due diligence on a home, from automated valuation models to flood ratings to, repair and renovation estimations. Like we have access to so much information for due diligence for properties. It's insane. Yet most agents don't use any of that stuff. Like literally none. I've had agents like, hey, what does your due diligence look like? In Massachusetts, we only have to disclose as a seller's agent whether there's private septic and lead paint. Like that's nothing. Other states require, seller's disclosures and all these other things. Like for example, Rick, you always talk about the importance of meeting minutes, right? It's like if you're doing any sort of condo due diligence, like you should be asking for the meeting minutes. It kind of blows my mind that agents don't ask for that stuff before making an offer, and as a listing agent, my job is to answer any questions honestly and ethically, and obviously provide a quick response to those questions. But I'm not like telling people what to do. I'm always floored by the questions that buyer agents don't ask. I have yet to come across a buyer's agent. I've come across many good buyer agents, so I don't want to disparage anyone in the industry, but like I haven't come across anyone where I was like, they asked everything they could, and I would probably fall in that category too, just because there's so much you could ask. And also you have to balance how much you ask, depending on if there's multiple offers on the table, you kind of have to ask like the best questions up front, just because most agents, if they're busy, they're not going to answer everything. But I don't know. I really feel like there's a lot of lacking when it comes to buyer due diligence. People are not spending a small amount of money for homes. Average price in Massachusetts is high 300s. And in the area that I work, it's over $1 million. So, it's kind of crazy if someone's going to spend $1 million, they're not going to work with someone that's going to ask like the right questions. It's a little sad. So I'd say those are probably the top two. And I don't want to talk too much. So if you want to know the other answers to those questions, call me.
Yeah. You have a phone number they can call you?
Yeah. Yep. You can find it on my website, waltersgroup.io. So, but let's, so I don't want to talk too much, but
I have a question for you guys actually on some like current events going on this week, with the guilty verdict coming out of Missouri on commissions and involving NAR. So I'd love to hear, maybe Rick, you can give us your insight on that, what you've heard on the attorney side, what this could mean for the industry.
Yeah, this literally, I think pretty much came down yesterday, right? And it seems to be speeding up the process. Doug, I'll probably ask you in a second how much you think it's really going to change. But I thought this was going to be about a year or two down the road before we started seeing the effects of this. But Doug, you can correct me. But I'm actually seeing, well, actually, let's get back to what Jason's talking about. There was a lawsuit where they went after a larger real estate office in terms of buyers' commissions, right? Where, they pretty much just saying, well, sellers shouldn't have to pay for buyers' commissions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how this is all going to unfold, I thought was going to be a little bit down the road, but now I'm already hearing where some larger real estate offices no longer paying buyer agency fees. So it's going to be a whole different strategy on how a buyer agent is going to get paid. I think the net out, Doug, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if a seller's not paying for a buyer agent fee, they could probably pay sell a property for a little less, right? And then the buyer is ostensibly going to be paying for that agency fee.
Mm-hmm.
But with that in mind, that the seller might take a little less now because they don't have to. So it might be netting out about the same thing. The biggest difference is I don't think a buyer, the kind of the conventional way where a buyer is both fees are included in a purchase price, a buyer could use that more in their financing. That seems how like it'll affect them a little bit, because now it's pretty much out of their pocket to pay that buyer agent, right? If that's the route they're going. So Jason might start seeing that pretty soon, where buyer is now part of their closing costs, X amount of dollars towards their buyer agent, as opposed in the past where it was all rolled into the selling price and could be financed. So, and Jason, I was thinking it was a little bit down the road, but I think some offices are already going that route. So, Jason and Doug, I'm sure you have to disclose that, or that's somehow on the MLS where they're disclosing we're not paying a buyer agency fee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of different thoughts on this, but yes, to answer your question, so in MLS, you have to disclose essentially how much you're offering as a buyer agency fee. And the way that they have it set up currently is you can offer any amount from, $1 to, $1 billion, right? And I think the key item of this case was the clear cooperation policy, which I think comes from NAR, the realtor boards, which essentially states that, the seller has to offer something to the buyer's agent, which is against like the Sherman Antitrust Act, right? Which it is. I agree 100%. I think the ruling makes perfect sense, and I think it's great that it happened. The interesting thing is, so you decouple, right, buyer and seller, agency commissions. I don't actually think it's going to change anything. That's my take. I think it's going to depend on the market. We were talking a little bit about this, Rick. So if you're leasing a property, oftentimes the fee that you're going to pay to an agent is 1 month's rent, right? And prior to the pandemic, that 1 month's rent was paid for by the buyer, right? To sort of put together that lease. And during COVID, because the market shifted so dramatically in Boston, the landlords were paying it. Why? Because the market shifted. So I don't think that commissions are going to change that much. There are some things that are going to change, though, which are going to be really good for the industry. I think that one thing that's going to change is the quality of buyer agents should increase. And again, I feel like this whole podcast is like Doug's difficult opinions, but when I talk, I really think the quality of buyer agents is like ridiculously low, unfortunately, considering what agents are getting paid. Like the industry needs, I've been saying it for years because I started off as a trainer when I was training agents on, marketing, sales, and advertising. I was like, how are these people making so much money? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And, now I think we're finally having that reckoning. It took 12 years since I joined the industry, but, it's time. It really is time for the quality of service to increase. So, buyer agents, the majority of new agents go into buyer agency just because it's easy, and they, misrepresent their clients, in my opinion. But no one knows because there's no standards, right? If I were to ask both of you, you guys are industry experts, like what's the standard for a buyer agent?
Standard.
There's no definition.
There's no standard, like there's none, it's kind of crazy. It's the same for listing agents, amazingly enough. So I feel like listing agents are next on the chopping block in terms of like, look, guys, like here's like a minimum requirement for what you do. The real estate industry as a whole, funny enough for realtors, there's like no standards. Like consumers are so ignorant with regard to what realtors do that realtors can just get away with offering like ridiculously low service and no one knows, like behind the scenes, I was looking at an email today. The realtor was like, hey, I found this really cheap photographer. It's like, well, your client's house is going to sell for less because you're hiring the real cheap photographer, but like good for you, I guess, so it's like, I really think that realtors are in for a reckoning here. Buyer agents are starting the reckoning, which is good, but it's going to transition over to listing agents. And the only thing I think that's really going to change is the quality of service that's offered. This industry doesn't need 1.6 million realtors. I think we could cut that in half, and then I think we could cut it in half again, to be honest with you. I think what it needs is really high quality professionals, which if you look at, and I'll kind of end on this because I could go on this for a tangent, but if you look at the fact that so many tech companies are getting into real estate, that suggests that it's a very disruptive industry and there's a lot of opportunity. Why are so many tech companies coming into real estate trying to fix problems? I think it's because there's so many problems and it's so unregulated and there's a lot of value that these tech companies can offer, right? So I don't view it as competition. I think it's great. I think inevitably the quality of service for everyone is going to increase, and consumers are going to become more educated, kind of like when Zillow, made listings available for everybody. Before agents used to hide it, in a book, be like, hey, you don't, the book's mine. You can't look at properties, and everyone kind of knew that was wrong. Zillow knew that was wrong, and they made it available for everybody. I think we're at that type of transition. It's like, yeah, hiding information from consumers for our financial benefit probably isn't the right call. Probably shouldn't be doing that when we're making, a lot of money. And I think that's just coming to a headway, and a lot of these Remax is decoupling from NAR. Anywhere is decoupling from NAR. There's like 300,000 agents right there. I'm trying to think what other ones there are. There's a whole host of franchises that are essentially saying like, okay, whoops, we messed up. We'll settle. And in the process of settling, we'll like make it so that our agents don't have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors, which is huge, right? National Association of Realtors is the largest lobbying group in the United States. So we're in for a whole host of change. The reality is consumers aren't going to feel it for a long time because inevitably there'll be an appeal. NAR's going to fight this. They're going to lose. It's going to be a huge waste of time. But at the end of it, consumers should get a better quality of service. It's probably going to take like half a decade for that to happen, though.
All right.
Did I bore you guys? Sorry.
No. Sure. Great to get your input on it. Everybody's panicking about it right now, I feel like.
Real estate doesn't really move that quickly. Seems like it's almost the same system as when I started. I don't know. It's a very slow moving process, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
The people who are panicking aren't offering enough value to their clients. Anyone who's good at what they do and is offering high value is not panicking right now. Mm-hmm. It's like if a chocolate shop opened up across the street and you offer a better service, you're not like, oh no, there's a chocolate shop. You're like, that chocolate shop's going to be out of business because I offer a better, you know what I mean? Like anyone who's panicking right now, I hate to say it, but they just don't offer enough value. Like there's nothing to worry about. So just the reality, like Jason, I don't think you worry if a new lender joins Guaranteed Rate. I don't think Jason's out in the street like, oh no,
Jason doesn't look nervous at all.
We're all good.
But yeah, so actually redirecting towards you, Jason, I am always super impressed by like all the different loan products that Guaranteed Rate comes up with. It seems like, something changes in the market and then Guaranteed Rate's like, yeah, we got a solution for that. Like out of curiosity, because you've been through so many different cycles, I know you can't like predict what Guaranteed Rate is going to offer, but can you suggest sort of like different types of things you've seen come up over the years, just so we can kind of get an idea of maybe what we could expect or exciting things that we could see in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're always trying to, one of the advantages of Guaranteed Rate is we're not a bank. We don't have one set of guidelines to offer. We have many investors, many different outlets for loans. So just this week, actually, we expanded our jumbo underwriting guidelines. A lot of banks and lenders can go down to, well, some are like a 720 credit score for a jumbo loan. You need to have that. A lot will go down to 680, which is where we used to be at. But now, as of this week, we go down to 660 for a credit score on a jumbo mortgage, which is the lowest I've heard of anyone doing. So that's an example of, they're always looking to find new options for us to offer our clients and our real estate partners. And being able to go down to 660 on a jumbo loan is pretty unique. So yeah, they're always pushing the envelope, finding new investors to work with and seeing what we can offer.
Nice. How about you, Rick? How are you pushing the industry forward? No pressure.
I'm pushing it forward because the same things I've been saying for about 20 years.
Why are people going to listen to Rick?
They're going to listen to me. I keep trying to push it forward. Nothing's been implemented there, but the way I'd love to push the industry, I know. I'll try.
That's my question.
What's that?
They're all shooting down Rick's ideas. He's trying, but they're just not taking it.
Yeah. No one's. Yeah. So I guess the way I'd like to see it pushed forward is to kind of rearrange the time frames when people are doing things, and I've always advocated for that. It seems like there's a lot of reliance on the closing attorney to ferret out issues, and unfortunately, a closing attorney's probably selected about 3 months after a house is listed. And I guess my opinion is in those 3 months before a closing attorney's selected, they could probably be doing a lot of things that would normally slow down a closing. So I've always said they should look into doing the title searches right when a house is listed. Doug, if they call you, I imagine you could get a hold of me and I could probably do someone's title search. They don't look into, if you have a private septic system, they don't really look into that in a timely manner until after the house has been put on the market and under agreement. And then they find out their septic system has failed. At that point, it's really tough to negotiate. You're actually giving a $40,000, $50,000 bonus to the buyer, and a seller can never reap that benefit because of the timing. Smoke detectors are done late. I've seen so many issues where someone goes in to get a smoke detector certificate, and the fire department says, well, the four multi-unit it's a two unit as opposed to 4 unit, or you got to remove that kitchen, or you got to move this and this, but that's after everything's been listed, the agreement's been signed, the buyer's expecting the house at a certain way, and they're not getting it because at the last second they try to get a smoke detector certificate. So I think a lot of this stuff should be done right at listing stage, as opposed to right when and I've been in that situation as the closing attorney. I order the title search and the plot plan and a municipal lien certificate to make sure there's no tax problems on the property. But, that's months after someone has decided to sell their house. It just has never made any sense to me. So I think if I had an extra 3 months as a seller to work on things, I'd be ecstatic. But again, they wait for the closing attorney to figure all that stuff out. So that's it. I'm going to continue that for the next 20 years, and no one's going to call me to do their title searches early, but I'm going to give it a shot. But
well, I think if I can add to that too, I agree with everything you're saying. I think the other piece too, though,
condo documents,
yep,
should be reviewed.
Well, so the other big advantage, I think, to bringing someone like you in early is you can preemptively, because you've been in the industry for so long, see any issues that are going to come up. Like, we're talking about the most common issues, which unbelievably kind of people just don't pay attention to. But you can also double check everything, starting the process with 30 years of due diligence experience. Like when you're reading through a P&S, you're reading through, it blows me away, for example, that offers are not read or reviewed by attorneys because they literally set the stage for the purchase and sale agreement, and agents that don't correctly put in, contingency language or other items, I always kind of laugh a little bit because a lot of agents just kind of put in, wishy-washy language into the offer in the hopes that, the attorneys will figure it out. But now that we're in a situation where buyers have more control and more power, what those buyer agents are putting in those offers is pretty key. If the language is incorrect, which I'm not an attorney, most agents aren't attorneys. I really do think that the attorneys should be brought in early. It really shocks me that they aren't, because
brokers tell me that. I just got that language in there. I didn't want to offend the seller too much, so I get the offer approved. I knew you'd take care of it once we get to the purchase and sale stage, but
that's correct. You can clean up the mess.
Exactly. I'm the closer. I know, but people got to remember that offer is a binding contract in Massachusetts. So what they put in there is that is the agreement. So people forget that all the time. But
yeah, I worked for one company that had a list of all the contingency language an agent could put in. And it was 4 pages of different things. And it's I understood it all, but I'm why isn't an attorney doing this? Why are we having agents do this? So I think that's just another item of note, for anyone listening or watching, is if you work with a team, you want to work with that attorney early. It's only to your advantage to get all the easy things checked off, but also all the difficult things. I think sometimes we forget the transactions can be challenging, considering we all sell it as this smooth, simple process. It's only smooth and simple if you work with good people.
It look smooth, right?
Close in 8 days,
close in 10 days,
buy the right property,
right?
No title issues,
right?
But I think it's kind of funny that is so idealized, because that's how it should work, right? It could happen every time that way. Inevitably, there are things that because it is an involved process. There are things that don't always go the right way, or but we can prepare and plan for those. Anyway, it's an interesting industry in that regard. But I think the key, which we keep talking about, is educating consumers. I'm always fascinated by the fact that we understand this. A lot of other industry professionals, some care, some don't. But why don't consumers know this stuff? Out of curiosity, why do you think it is that consumers don't know how to pick an attorney, realtor, or lender? Why don't they know about what's going on with these major court cases that are going to affect, billions of dollars, frankly, in commissions? Why is all this information behind the scenes and not available for consumers? What do you think, Jason?
I think for them, it's just they get caught up in a house that they love and they want it. They don't think about anything else. They're how do I get this house? And it's in the market we've been in, it's all offers are due in 3 hours. They don't have time to have an attorney check their title and to have this in-depth conversation with their agent about the pros and cons of the house. Like, they see a house, they want it, they need to decide quick. And, they don't have the time to do all this other stuff. And, ultimately the house can be theirs in 2 weeks, and then they learn all about the home, really. So it's been a tough market for buyers, really. And I think that's part of the reason we see them not being able to do all this research up front. But that could be
if I can add to that, I also think that's why buyers should start searching before they start searching. AK, connect with Jason a year before you make a decision so that you can become educated about all these things and get the benefit of everything you just talked about, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the sooner they can prepare, the better off they're going to be, right? Usually, if you're going to buy a home more than the weekend before. So you just need to take action and get ready for it.